Hi, this is Dale O'Shields. Thanks for joining us for our Church Builder podcast. So glad that you're part of this. And again, I have in the studio with me today great friends, lifelong friends, actually. You've been friends for many, many years. And nothing like having a lifelong friend. Nothing like it to do life and ministry together. Pastor Robert Barriger, who's senior pastor of Camino de Vida in Lima, Peru, along with his son, Taylor Barriger, here with us again, and he's a part of the lead team there at the church and does a lot of the preaching as well, teaching leadership. And thank you guys for being a part of this session again today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us back.
It's awesome.
You know, one of the things that I wanted to do in this episode is I want to take a little bit of time and talk about Camino de Vida. And some folks will be familiar with the ministry there, and others may be new to you to hear about Camino de Vida. But it's a church in Lima, Peru, and it has really made a significant impact upon the community there, the city, the nation, and literally now impacting the continent of South America. And I want to talk a little about something that I feel every time that I visit Camino de Vida, and something that's so unique and something powerful. That's the culture of your church. And I think we've heard over recent years that word church culture talked about quite a bit. It's more of a popular term now than perhaps it used to be. Yeah. I remember early in ministry, I had never even heard the word church culture, didn't know what it meant. But now it's certainly much more popular. A lot of books have been written about it. But nevertheless, sometimes it's hard to define. It's hard to say what that is. And I think for many of us, we're still trying to make that jump between the concept of culture and the reality of what culture is in a church. But every time I go to Camino de Vida, and I was there not too long ago, I sense this incredible culture that is so positive and so enthusiastic and so it's Jesus-centered, it's service-centered, it's focused on community life, and it's life-giving to be in it. So talk to me about what culture means to you guys, and maybe how you all define it, what values that you have as a church that relates to culture, how you communicate it, how you help people to develop that, and then maybe how we can learn something from that ourselves.
Oh, man, I would actually, we haven't even rehearsed this, but I'd go and say that we definitely have a vision, but if you ask our staff, you'd probably hear 10 responses that are different about the vision. We have some strategies in place, but we're not a strategic church. But what we do have is we have a pretty solid culture. And it's not a culture that we impose on people. It's actually ends up being very contagious. And once you're in it, you want to be a part of it.
Wow. And it is contagious. You feel that, right?
Yeah. And so, and it's something that, again, we haven't been strategic about our culture. It's mainly been my parents, the pastors, being consistent throughout 30 years plus of the church, being consistent in the way they make decisions, the way they treat people. And
let me just clarify, consistently good.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah.
Almost.
Right. So.
Yeah, and it's like a family.
Right.
You don't have to have a set of rules, but there's definitely a culture happening in that family, and it's the parents that set the tone for how that home feels and the set. I would say the main thing, because I've tried to study this a lot and evaluate it a lot, and it's the main thing that makes our culture what it is there's a loyalty and a trust. My dad is giving second chances, and third and fourth, and people that I've said, hey, let's take him out. He goes, no, I believe in him. And I'm going, okay, I'll trust you. And then a year down the line, that person just helps set up something that's helped 600 marriages. And I'm like, okay, I'm eating crow now.
Right.
Because you were right and I was wrong. And so it just helps me go further than him with me saying, you know what, I'll trust you. And I'm like, I'm not trustworthy, but he's trusting me. I better step up my game.
Right.
And so it's just this perpetual culture of trust and belief in people and opportunities. And I think that would be the key element for our church.
So to summarize it, you really are saying that it's not so much necessarily a strategy of producing a kind of culture, but it's the way you approach people. It's the mindset that you have. It's creating that family environment. It's creating an atmosphere of grace. Those are elements that are part of it.
Yeah. In fact, last night we were talking about this, and there's a quote he mentioned, and I actually love it, about Churchill.
Yeah, it's interesting because when, I like to listen to the way Taylor explains the culture of our church, because I don't know if it was on purpose, but I do recognize we have something, and it's fun. We actually enjoy being there. Our staff loves doing life together, loves working together. But the quote on Churchill leading toward this loyalty thing, I always remember a story of Winston Churchill that I'd heard about where he had a minister, an economic minister, who had given him a report. And he used the report on a State of the Union type message, and it turned out the numbers were wrong. Mm. And he was heavily criticized for giving wrong numbers. And the question came up after that is, are you going to fire that minister after he made this mistake? And Churchill said, no, he's learned a lesson. He'll never do that again.
Wow. Mm.
And that man, because of the trust, the loyalty Churchill had toward him, became one of the most loyal friends of Churchill till the day he died.
Wow.
He was there. Sometimes people look at our church and they say, well, how do you get that many loyal leaders? And it's just probably because we've trusted them. We've helped them through some hard times. They've messed up a couple times, and we've given them bold grace and helped them back. And because of that bold grace, because of that, they have a loyalty to us, which we don't ask for and we don't misuse.
And don't demand it either.
No, it's actually, it's a little humbling and uncomfortable, but that it creates a culture in the church where if another church wanted to come and take some of these people away, they couldn't. Mm-hmm. Because there's just a loyalty because of the years we put into them.
This is their home.
It's their home.
They belong, yeah.
Well, it's more than that. We call it a family. Mm-hmm. You don't attend family. You're just a part.
You're part of family, right.
And, I use the Greek Wedding. It's an old TV show or movie.
Yeah, the movie.
My Greek Wedding. And it's funny because in My Greek Wedding on the movie, there was a grandma who is like Rambo dressed in an army gear and runs around at night looking in people's windows. And the truth is we all have somebody like that in our family. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Everybody has somebody in their family that's like, yeah, but he's family. Mm-hmm. So we still invite him over for Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right, okay.
It's just, yeah, they're weird, but he's family. And in our church, yeah, there's some of us that are weird, but they're family. But you're all welcome.
That's great.
And you all belong.
One of the things that I see when I'm there is obviously enthusiastic worship and a lot of young people, a lot of youth in the church, a lot of next gen elements to the church, and also a passion for serving. Not just serving within the context of the church, although there's tremendous response in that regard, but you guys are so involved in outreach and touching your city and your nation. And I think that contributes when you're out there doing those kind of things, that builds a sense of mission together that people are able to connect with. Talk about some of the things that you guys do as a church that go beyond the walls of the church, but make a huge impact and also reinforce the culture that you're trying to create there in your church environment.
Just briefly, let me say, because you've introduced us this way as friends, we've been friends, Pastor Dale, you and I, for 35 years. And I encourage people, don't do life alone.
Yeah.
Don't do ministry alone. And I think that same culture, I thank God for the friendship that Pastor Dale and I have had these years, and we have made each other's lives and ministries better. We encourage each other. I know our church is greatly what it is today because of this friendship. So a lot of what we become is because of the friends we have. Mm. The people that do they encourage you on. I've heard it said this way, if you're the smartest in your group, get a new group.
Right.
And we have a group of Dale and I that just constantly encouraging. So going into the culture, I think that leads into the next generation, the youth, because they're not interested like our generation was in knowledge and learning, and they're interested in making a difference. Mm. They want to make a difference. They want their life. They're very social justice minded. So if we connect them to a purpose of serving, and we serve our city. Last year, the year 2018, we reached about 147,000 people.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing for one congregation.
Incredible. Mm-hmm.
And that's just because we've taught this thing about passion to serve. Go out there and do random acts of kindness without anything coming back to you. It's not evangelism or not trying to win anybody to church. Just go serve somebody. Go help somebody. Do something random.
Mm-hmm.
And that's become so much of the culture of our church that we go out and pretty soon people start asking, like, why are you doing this? Oh, we're Christian. Can I go to your church? And it becomes in a very unassuming way, a way that others are drawn into our church because of the serving attitude. So it's a little hard to explain it, but it's definitely part of the culture.
Yeah, now I would go even further. I remember, because right now serving is a popular thing.
Yeah.
It's the millennials and all that. But I would differ and sort of disagree. It's not why we do it. I remember being a kid in the back of a pickup truck going out and serving. And so this has been since the early 80s. It's been your heart to help people open-handedly, to serve the community. Whatever we can do, we'll do it, and probably a little more. And so it's your trajectory as the leader, as the pastor. There's a saying, what you have is what you allow. And also I'll say what you have is what you celebrate. And so we've all seen you guys, leaders of the church, living this out. And so it's not a fake thing. It's not a contrived thing. It's actually who we are. And that's a big difference.
Well, yeah, part of the reason that I want us to talk about this is because I believe it's something that every church can do and get into their culture, but you have to have a heart for it, an awareness of needs that arise. And I was, for example, touched by part of the story that I heard regarding the firefighters in your city and how there was a need that came up that most people would have just really passed them by. They would not have really thought much about it, but something in your heart and the heart of Camino de Vida rose up in that moment to do something, and it's then opened up incredible opportunity of influence. Talk about that specific event, and then we'll tie that into maybe how others can learn from that in church life.
Yeah, it's the firefighters actually starts with about a year before the firefighters. There was a natural disaster in Peru. We had floods.
Okay.
Lima is an arid desert. It doesn't rain in Lima. We haven't had measurable rainfall in Lima, Peru in 100 years. But in the mountains just east of Lima, there was a heavy rainfall, unusually heavy. Mudslides came through and wiped out, they estimate, 160,000 homes.
Wow. So
our church, and I felt like Mahatma Gandhi, literally, when he said, "There goes my people, I must hurry because I'm their leader." I literally watched on the news in the morning, and there was our teams out there serving.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, before we even had time to mobilize them, they were mobilized and out.
So you had not called them together and say, "Hey guys, let's go serve." They were already serving before there was any formalized response.
Small groups, areas of the church just mobilized, let's get together. And they were out digging homes out. They were out, with shovels, helping people get out of there. One of the things we needed, I was wondering at that disaster, what do they need? And what they needed was a hot meal. So we have these food trucks, and it's a trailer that we actually pull and can feed 500 to 1,000 people a day per trailer. And we've got a few of these trailers, and we started feeding people with the trailers. Fast forward, after the floods are over, I'm watching on the news, once again on TV, and there was a major 4-alarm fire downtown Lima. An entire city block of warehouse goods, which meant paint thinner, flammable liquids, was on fire.
My goodness.
Yeah, it was horrible.
It was horrible. And it was one of these fires that burned at 2,000 degrees and extremely hot. And I was watching these firemen on the news. I know that all the firemen in Peru are volunteered. None of them are paid. They have to buy their own uniform.
My goodness.
A fireman's uniform can cost $2,000 because of the fire retardant material on it. And as we're watching it, I'm noticing neighbors are bringing them cookies and a Coke, and they had nothing to eat.
Wow.
So I just on a whim, I said, let's get our food truck down there and serve the firemen. And I remember some of the staff said, what? But no, let's go serve the firemen. So we took the trucks down there immediately, as predictable. Hundreds of volunteers showed up. We cooked 3 meals a day and midnight snacks. The fire burned a week.
A week.
A week straight. And that entire week, we served the firemen breakfast, lunch, dinner, and they were so thankful. We found out then that the Peruvian government basically gave them a bottle of water and a bag of cookies, and the neighbors, whatever they brought, that's what they ate.
Wow.
So we said, well, what gives you strength? And they told us what to feed them, what not to feed them. And we give them healthy meals that were helping them. And that has developed a friendship with the fire department. So now if there's anything above 3-alarm fire, they'll call us saying, can you send a truck with us?
Wow.
And, we say we get to serve the heroes.
Wow.
And out of that, we honor the firemen. We were able to contact some fire departments in the United States, and they gathered some gear together and shipped it over there. We were able to bless the firemen with gear that it's very hard for them to get.
Yeah, containerful. Yeah.
Yeah. We were able to help them, and they were so thankful. I still remember the day, the first time ever in Peru, a sitting president went into an evangelical church, was our church. We had some firemen there that we wanted to honor the firemen. They lined up the trucks in front of our church and honored us.
Wow.
And it absolutely astounded me.
Mm-hmm.
That's moving.
Yeah, and the president came in. We were able to, I guess the way I can say this is by serving, we earned the right to be heard.
Wow.
Instead of just there trying to scream at what the world is doing, we served, and they listened to us.
Wow.
And now we have hundreds of firemen that have given their hearts to Jesus, and they're in the church. And
it all started with just a simple act of serving that was almost spontaneous in nature.
We actually did something, and you know this, Pastor Dale. To this day, our church, we have not been able to buy a building. Just the prices in Peru are beyond our reach. But during the floods, there was a fire station just south of Lima that was wiped out. The entire station was gone. So our church got together and built a new fire station.
Oh, my goodness.
And the first time the firemen said, yeah, somebody else giving us a promise. And then when we actually built the fire station.
It took us a year.
Yeah.
It took us a long time.
No, it cost more than I thought and took longer than I thought, but I don't regret it.
Right.
And because of that, the fire people now turn to us saying, you really do care.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
they're actually now asking us, can you put a church over by us?
Wow.
Can you please put a church here? So someday we will.
So talk to Taylor. I'm going to throw this back to you for a moment as we're wrapping up today's episode. Talk to us, all of us churches, and say, okay, what's a lesson we learned from this? All of us want to take away from our own lives and for our own churches based upon what you've learned and seen and you guys are experiencing in your church in South America. What's a lesson for us that will help us to create that kingdom-like culture that reaches out and serves?
I would say simply find a niche and scratch it. Basically, we never had a map board and a think tank about what could we do. And so we saw a massive itch and we just went and scratched it the best we could. And honestly, we feel insufficient in the way we do it. But God has provided and God's been faithful. I would say your community, your city has a very specific itch. And if you just say, God, let me see it, and you just go, I don't have the resources, but we're going to run into that fire. We're going to run into the situation and try to be an aid or a help, and not be there. So one of the things I love is we built that fire station. My dad did the inauguration of the fire station, but what he didn't do, he didn't say, okay, sit around and do a Bible study.
Right.
He just went and said, I love this. You guys are awesome. You guys are our heroes. And so it's no strings attached. And their response is, we need a church here.
Wow.
And so if we can do that in our communities, find an itch and scratch it and don't expect anything in return, I think the fruit of that is lasting fruit.
Wow. So really, as the old saying goes, the church, let the church be the church. And when the church is the church, it's really communicating. And it's not just with the words, but it's with your actions as well.
Yeah, the trap is we always want to, what's the return on our investment? Mm-hmm. I think for the church, that is an insult to God.
Yeah.
And we can't play that game. We got to know we're going to do it because Christ is good.
Yeah.
And that's all.
Absolutely.
So.
It's fantastic. Well, thank you guys for sharing with us, and thank you for just reminding us of that culture that Jesus called us to demonstrate to the world around us. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a part of our podcast today. Glad that you're part of it. Just a quick reminder that coming up the 20th through the 22nd of May 20th through 22nd, our United Pastors Network Conference. You're invited to be a part of it along with your teams. It's a great time. We call it a place of resourcing and relationships. And really, you will get some good resources, but also, I think perhaps more importantly, you get some relationships, some ministry friends that you can develop and connect with. Really, hopefully, we pray for the rest of your life. So go to UnitedPastorsNetwork.com, all one word, UnitedPastorsNetwork.com, and go ahead and get registered. We'll look forward to seeing you. Go and be blessed. Thanks for being with us today.